And I furthermore question the uncouth personage you describe as your guide. Would you have me believe that such a being had an existence outside an abnormal thought creation? Ah, he replied, you have done well to ask these two questions in succession, for you permit me to answer both at once. Listen. The monkey, of all animals, seems to approach closest to man in figure. The Siamang gibbon of Asia, the bull-headed saki of South America, with its stub of a tail, being nearest. From these types we have great deviations, as in the wanderer of India, with its whiskered face, and the black macaque of the island of Celebes, with his hairy top-knot and hairless stub of a tail, or the well-known squirrel monkey, with its long, supple tail, with the thumbless spider monkey of South America. Between these types we have among monkeys nearly every conceivable shape of limb and figure, and in color and their faces and bodies, all shades of the rainbow. Some squirrels jump and then sail through the air. The sloth can barely move on the earth. Anteaters have no teeth at all, while the grizzly bear can crush a gun barrel with its molars. The duck-billed platypus of South Australia has the body of a mole, the tail of a raccoon, the flat bill of a duck, and the flipper of a seal combined with the feet of a rat. It lays eggs as birds do, but suckles its young as do other mammalia. The opossum has a prehensile tail, as have some monkeys, and in addition a living bag or pouch in which the female carries her tiny young. The young of a kind of tree frog of the genus Hylotis breathe through a special organ in their tails. The young of the pippa, a great South American toad, burrow into the skin of the mother, and still another from Chile, as soon as hatched, creep down the throat of the father frog and find below the jaw an opening into a false membrane covering the entire abdomen, in which they repose in safety. 3 species of frogs and toads have no tongue at all, while in all the others the tongue is attached by its tip to the end of the mouth and is free behind. The ordinary bullfrog has conspicuous great legs, while a relative, the Cocilia, and others as well, have a head reminding of the frog, but neither tail nor legs, the body being elongated as if it were a worm. The long slender fingers of a bat are united by means of a membrane that enables it to fly like a bird, while as a contrast the fingers of a mole, its near cousin, are short and stubby, and massive as compared with its frame. The former flies through the air, the latter burrows, almost flies, through the earth. The great anteater has a curved head which is drawn out into a slender snout, no teeth, a long, slender tongue, a great bushy tail, and claws that neither allow the creature to burrow in the earth nor climb into trees, but which are admirably adapted to tear an anthill into fragments. Its close relatives, the apar and armadillo, have a round body covered with bony plates and a short, horny, curved tail, while another relative, the long-tailed pangolin, has a great alligator-like tail, which, together with its body, is covered with horny, overlapping scales. The Greenland whale has an enormous head occupying more than 1/3 its length, no teeth, and a throat scarcely larger than that of a suckerfish. The golden mole has a body so nearly symmetrical that, were it not for the snout, it would be difficult to determine the location of the head without close inspection, and it has legs so short that, were it not for the powerful claws, they would not be observed at all. The narwhal has a straight, twisted tusk, Hold on, I interrupted. Do you think that I am concerned in these well-known contrasts in animal structure? Did you not question the possibility of the description I gave you of my grotesque drunkards, and of the form of my subterranean guide? My guest retorted. Yes, but I spoke of men. You describe animals. Man is an animal, and between the various species of animals that you say are well known, greater distinctions can be drawn than between my guide and surface earthmen. Besides, had you allowed me to proceed to a description of animal life beneath the surface of the earth, I would have shown you that my guide partook of their attributes. Of the creatures described, one only was of the intra-earth origin, the mole, and like my guide, it is practically eyeless. Go on, I said. 'Tis useless for me to resist, and yet what? And yet I have other subjects to discuss. Proceed. I do not like the way in which you constantly criticize science, especially in referring thereto the responsibilities of the crazed anatomist. It seems to me that he was a monomaniac, gifted but crazed, and that science was unfortunate in being burdened by such an incubus. True, and yet science advances largely by the work of such apparently heartless creatures. Were it not for investigators who overstep the bounds of established methods and thus criticize their predecessors, science would rust and disintegrate. Besides, why would not science be judged by the rules she applies to others? What do you mean? Who is more free to criticize religion than the materialistic man of science? But a religious man is not cruel. Have you not read history? Have you not shuddered at the crimes recorded in the name of the religions of man? Yes, but these cruelties were committed by misguided men under the cloak of the church or of false religions during the Dark Ages. Do not blame religion, but the men who abuse the cause. Yes, he added, you are right. They are fanatics, crazed beings, men, yes, even communities raving mad. Crazed leaders can infuse the minds of the people with their fallacies and thus become leaders of crazed nations. Not, as I have depicted in my Scientific Enthusiast, one man alone in the privacy of his home torturing a single child, but whole nations pillaging, burning, torturing, and destroying. But this is foreign to our subject. Beware, I reiterate, of the science of human biology. The man who enters the field cannot foresee the end. The man who studies the science of life and records his experiments cannot know the extremes to which a fanatical follower may carry the thought current of his leader. I have not overdrawn the lesson. Besides, science is now really torturing, burning, maiming, and destroying humanity. The act of destruction has been transferred from barbarians and the fanatic in religion to the followers of the devotees of science. No, I say no. Who created the steam engine? Who evolves improved machinery? Who creates improved artillery and explosives? Scientific men. He hesitated. Go on. Accumulate the maimed and destroyed each year. Add together the miseries and sorrows that result from the explosions, accidents, and catastrophes resulting from science improvements in the Dark Ages scarcely offer a parallel. Add thereto the fearful destruction that follows a war among nations scientific, and it will be seen that the scientific enthusiast of the present has taken the place of the misguided fanatic of the past. Let us be just. Place to the credit of religion the good that religion has done. Place to the credit of science the good that science is doing, and yet do not mistake, both leave in their wake an atmosphere saturated with misery, a road whitened with humanity's bones. Neither the young nor the old are spared, and so far as the sufferer is concerned, it matters not whether the person has been racked by the tortures of an inquisition or the sword of an infidel, is shrieking in the agony of the scald by superheated steam, or is mangled by an explosion of nitroglycerin. Again he hesitated. Go on. One of science's most serious responsibilities, from which religion has nearly escaped, is that of supplying thought food to fanatics, and from this science cannot escape. Explain yourself. Who places the infidel in possession of arguments to combat sacred teachings? Who deliberately tortures animals and suggests that biological experimentation in the name of science before cultivated audiences even is legitimate, such as making public dissections of living creatures? Enough, enough, I cried, thinking of his crazed anatomist and covering my face with my hands. You make my blood creep. Yes, he added sarcastically, you shudder now and criticize my truthful study, and tomorrow you will not forget the lesson, and perhaps for dinner you will relish your dish of veal, the favorite food of mothers, the nearest approach to the flesh of babies. Then his manner changed, and in his usual mild, pleasant way he said, take what I have said kindly. I wish only to induce your religious part to have more charity for your scientific self, and the reverse. Both religion and science are working towards the good of man, although their devotees are human, and by human errors bring privations, sufferings, and sorrows to men. Neither can fill the place of the other. Each should extend a helping hand and have charity for the shortcomings of the other. They are not antagonists, but workers in one field. Both must stand the criticisms of mutual antagonists, and both have cause to fear the evils of fanaticism within their own ranks more than the attacks of opponents from without. Let the religious enthusiast exercise care whose burning earnest words may lead a weakened father to murder an innocent family, and yet 'tis not religion that commits the crime. Let the zealous scientific man hesitate. He piles up fuel by which minds unbalanced or dispositions perverted seek to burn and destroy hopes that have long served the yearnings of humanity's soul. Neither pure religion nor true science is to blame for the acts of his devotees, and yet each must share the responsibility of its human agents. We will discuss the subject no further, I said. It is not agreeable. Then I continued. The idea of eternity without time is not quite clear to me, and although I catch an imperfect conception of the argument advanced, do you mean to say that when a soul leaves the body, the earth life of the individual, dominated by the soul, is thrown off from it as the snap of a whiplash, and that at the point between life and death, the hereafter of that mortal may be concentrated? I simply give you the words of my guide, he replied, but you have expressed the idea about as well as your word language will admit. Such a conception of eternity is more rational to one who, like myself, has lived through an instant that covered, so far as mind is concerned, 1,000,000 years of time. That is an attempt to grasp the conception of an eternity without beginning or end, by basing an argument on conditions governing material substances, as these substances are known to man. You have the germ of the idea, which may be simply a thought for you to ponder over. You can study the problem at your leisure. Do not, however, I warn you, attempt to comprehend the notion of eternity by throwing into it the conception of time as men accept that term, for the very word time, as men define it, demands that there be both a beginning and an end. Without the sense of time in one's mind, there can be no conception of the term eternity. Then, as I had so often done before, I unwarily gave him an opportunity to enlarge on his theme to my disadvantage. I had determined not to ask any questions concerning his replies to my criticism, for whenever I had previously done so, the result had been disastrous to me. In this case, I unwittingly said, "Why do you say that our language will not permit of clearer conceptions than you give?" "Because your education does not permit you to think outside of words. You are word-bound." "You astonish me by making such an arrogant assertion. Do you mean to assert that I cannot think without using words?" "Yes. Every thought you indulge is circumscribed. You presumably attempt to throw the thought line forward, and yet you step backward and spin it in words that have been handed you from the past, and, struggle as you may, you cannot liberate yourself from the dead incubus. Attempt to originate an idea, and see if you can escape your word master." "Go on, I am listening." "Men scientific think in language scientific. Men poetical think in language poetic. All educated men use words in thinking of their subjects, words that came to them from the past and enslaved their intellect. Thus it is that the novelist cannot make fiction less real than its fact, that scientists cannot commence at the outside and build a theory back to phenomena understood. In each case, the foundation of a thought is a word that in the very beginning carries to the mind a meaning, a something from the past. Each thought ramification is an offshoot from words that express ideas and govern ideas, yes, create ideas, even dominating the mind. Men speak of ideas when they intend to refer to an image in the mind, but in reality they have no ideas outside of the word sentences that they consciously reformulate. Define the term idea correctly, and it will be shown that an idea is a sentence, and if the sentence is made of words already created, there can be no new idea, for every word has a fixed meaning. Hence, when men think, they only rearrange words that carry with themselves networks of ideas, and thus play upon their several established meanings. How can men so circumscribed construct a new idea or teach a new science? New words are being created. Language is slowly progressing, but no new words adds itself to a language. It is linked to thought chains that proceed. In order to create a word, as a rule, roots are used that are as established in philology as are building materials in architecture. When a new sound is thrust into a language, its intent must be introduced by words already known, after which it conveys a meaning derived from the past and becomes a part of mind sentences already constructed, as it does of spoken language. Language has thus been painfully and slowly evolved and is still being enlarged. But while new impressions may be felt by an educated person, the formulated feeling is inseparable from well-known surviving words. Some men are dumb, yes, and yet they frame mind impressions into unspoken words of their own. Otherwise they will be scarcely more than animals. We move on the earth. Anteaters have no teeth at all, while the grizzly bear can crush a gun barrel with its molars. The duck-billed platypus of South Australia has the body of a mole, the tail of a raccoon, the flat bill of a duck, and the flipper of a seal combined with the feet of a rat. It lays eggs as birds do, but suckles its young as do other mammalia. The opossum has a prehensile to answer both at once. Listen. The monkey, of all animals, seems to approach closest to man in figure. The Siamang gibbon of Asia, the bull-headed saki of South America, with its stub of a tail, being nearest. From these types we have great deviations, as in the wanderer of India, with its whiskered face, and the black macaque of the island of Celebes, with its hairy tail, as have some monkeys, and in addition a living bag or pouch in which the female carries her tiny young. The young of a kind of tree frog of the genus Hylotis breathe through a special organ in their tails. The young of the pippa, a great South American toad, burrow into the skin of the mother, and still another from Chile, as soon as hatched, creep down the top knot and hairless stub of a tail, or the well-known squirrel monkey with its long, supple tail, with the thumbless spider monkey of South America. Between these types we have among monkeys nearly every conceivable shape of limb and figure, and in color, and their faces and bodies, all shades of the rainbow. Some squirrels jump and then sail through the air. The sloth can barely And I furthermore question the uncouth personage you describe as your guide. Would you have me believe that such a being had an existence outside an abnormal thought creation? Ah, he replied, you have done well to ask these two questions in succession, for you permit me